Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We're
Okay.
recording.
We're recording. Okay, we're starting over. Hi, welcome to the ASU Digital Accessibility Liaisons. I'm Alejandra Dash, Senior Instructional Designer, Learning Enterprise, and I am one of the co-leads for this. Oh, let's see here, show captions for this group. And my partner here, Kathy. She can
Hi, Kathy Marks, IT Accessibility Coordinator for Enterprise Technology and the other co-lead for Accessibility Liaisons.
All right, and we're gonna start our presentation. It goes next. There it goes. Okay. So today we're going to talk about making images accessible. And we're going to show you how we make images accessible, some tips, some tricks, and then we'll have an accessibility giveaway, and then we will have an optional discussion afterwards. So if you would like to be part of the giveaway, please drop your name in the chat and I will add it on the back end
You
later
want
on.
to tell them what we give away?
Oh yes, we give away the opportunity to learn more about accessibility with WebAIM. It's lots of fun. It's a free course. So and you get a little certificate at the end, not a badge, but a certificate, but it gives you really the background knowledge that you need to be able to successfully assess a course or assess a web page or assess a document and know what questions to ask at the very minimum. But it does give you some tools and tips and tricks that you can easily access, a lot of free tools, tips, and tricks that are very, very helpful. Okay. So let's talk about accessible digital images.
You want me to take it from here?
That would be great.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to give you guys this list again. And this is where's everyone? Oh, here we go. This is a list of resources that you guys can use to go back to your units and give a presentation if you want, or just you can even distribute it. And there's Google Slides. There's also PowerPoint slides. It's the same slides, but depending on which ones you like. And if you're going to use the Google Slides, could you just make a copy of those and then you can alter it however you want. If you go to the Dropbox link, there is the PowerPoint slides, and the alt text February, is alt text month. That little image that I don't know if you saw it in the Slack channel, but that's available for you. You can use it to promote the idea of February being this month that we're all going to tackle alt text on our images. And then we also have a kind of a redo of the W3C's alt text decision tree. At one of the designers that I work with, Nilo XR, he redid it. It's beautiful. Please go in and download those resources. You can either print that out, if you're in the office, if you work in it, in the office, print it out and post it, in a couple of places, or you can send it to your colleagues or your team and say, use this, if you get stuck and you're really not sure, use this. So anyway, that's let me share my screen now because yep. I gotta find my screen, my slides. I have too many things open. Let's see. Here we go. Can you guys see that? Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So this is the slideshow that's available to you to download and then alter it however you want. You can cut, stuff out or add stuff, whatever you want to do. So this is a slideshow about making digital images accessible, primarily how to make how to make get alt text and how to know when to add alt text. So I think it's really important to start out and show people what happens when you don't write alt text. And probably the biggest disadvantages that there when images, if they don't load, for instance, as in on this page, you'll get a broken image and there's no indication of what that image was. So if I'm on a slow internet connection, for instance, and lots of people are, especially as ASU expands around the world, I'm going to get a page with no images and no indication at all of what's in those images. So if I have a disability, I can't, if I have low vision or no vision, my screen reader has nothing to read. So I'm not getting the same or equivalent content as everyone else. So this is what the web looks like for people using screen readers when images don't have alt text. And we're at, please don't do this. So why do images need alt text? People with low or no vision who can't see images, a screen reader will read the alt text for them. So read it out loud. Without alt text, some screen readers will go ahead and try to figure out something that they can give to the user, and often it's the URL of the file. So it's like a long string of gobbledygook, and the person with the screen reader has to listen to this. So, and not helpful at all. In addition, a really nice thing is using alt text can result in higher SEO rankings. So Google can't index very well images. They think they're starting to a little bit, but it's pretty error prone. But it can index alt text. So that's really going to bump up your search and your rankings if that's something that is of value to you. Also, I know that some people are talking about AI being able to create alt text of images, but again, very error prone. They can maybe tell that this is a man in a hoodie, but the chances, if you're trying to make the point that this is Sheldon Cooper or the Vulcan mind meld, you'll need to, chances are that the AI isn't going to go into that kind of detail. Does anybody have any other ideas of why we might need images? Any other advantages of doing alt text?
Well, I think if we're using infographics, the whole point of it is to illustrate the point. And if you can't even tell what it is or know that it's an infographic, I guess you'd have to provide additional context anyways, because a screen reader probably can't read that anyway.
Yeah, screen readers can't read images, so we have to provide a text alternative, hence alt text.
Kathy, this just happened to me in class. I had an assignment on Canvas, and there were images that were for inspiration and discussion questions that went with it. I don't know what I did wrong, but my images didn't show up for the discussion, and they were important. However, my alt text made it possible for the task to go ahead and still be productive. So I was really happy that I had done that little bit of extra work.
Wow, that's really cool. And think about students who are trying to learn a subject, if they just get a big blank, but if you provide good alt text, hey, they're going to be able to get the same information as people who are able to see that image. I think you guys mentioned a little bit, it does help for us to write alt text, I think, as the creator, because you do start to ask yourself, is this image really important? If I can't think of anything to say about it, then maybe it's not really even necessary. Or sometimes you, in describing the alt text, you realize that I think I need something different to illustrate the point I'm trying to make. So I think it aids creators too. So people often ask, okay, so where do I add alt text? And there's actually 3 places. You can put it in a caption. So as you see the man in the tutu, underneath it says large bearded man in pink tutu. That's supposed to be the caption, smaller text. You can do that. And that is considered WCAG compliant. And in that case, if you've already supplied a caption, then you still put in the alt tag. If you're a developer, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you, you will mark it as decorative. If you are just using like a WYSIWYG to input your images. So mark it as decorative because you're already using, you're putting that alt text in the caption. Same thing in the surrounding content. That's also a possibility. If the description of the image is in the surrounding content, don't put it again in the alt text. That's making the screen reader user have to listen to it twice. So just mark that image as decorative. If you're a developer, that means just, leave it a null alt attribute. And the most popular way, though, that people add image descriptions is in what we call an alt text field. It's just a little tag that's on the image element in the HTML. If you're not a developer, you don't need to know that. We'll show you in a minute how you can add alt text in many, many different platforms, from WordPress to Canvas. But most of the time, this is how you add your image description, and you just write it in the description field. So here's how you add it in Canvas. So I would right click, or sometimes you double click on the image. You'll see a little image options toolbar come up, or tooltip come up. Click on that and it'll take you to image options, and then you can describe your image there. In Microsoft Word, pretty similar. Double click on it or right click on it, and a little modal window will pop up, and you will add your description in that open field. In Google Docs, again, double click or right click, you'll see a little menu come up. Click the alt text, and then in the description field, you'll add your description of that image. In Microsoft Word, this is a little trickier. They changed it recently. So although this is Outlook 365, so maybe the standalone is a little bit easier. Maybe they didn't change that one, but you have to double click or right click on it. And then you have to go up to the toolbar and click picture format. And then another toolbar appears, click on the alt text, and then you're able to input the description in the open field. In Gmail, pretty easy. Double click, right click, go to the edit alt text, and in the description field that pops up, describe your image. Now, if you are working, I know there's some units around campus, engineering springs to mind, that they use WordPress pretty heavily. So if you're maintaining content on a web site in WordPress, you will also double click or right click on it, and then you'll probably have like a little image icon in your toolbar. You click on that, and this modal window will open. And you can write, you can either put it in the caption or the alternative text. One thing though, don't use the title attribute at the bottom. A title attribute, whenever you add a title, it actually appears on the page as a tooltip. And tooltips aren't really very accessible friendly. They can cover things up and make things hard to read for people. If you're using ASU's WebSpark, a WebSpark site, you will click, right click, and then you click the little image icon in the WYSIWYG bar. Again, a modal window will pop up, and again, you want to fill in the alt text field, don't fill in the title text. Again, title text creates tool tips, which aren't very user-friendly. So let's talk about the different types of images that there are. And that's going to dictate a little bit, quite a bit, what kind of alt text you're going to write. So which images do need alt text? And I should have made that an alt tag. All images need an alt tag. Every single image has to have one. However, decorative images, you leave those blank. So I either put a little, either if there's an option to mark the image as decorative, I check that. If there isn't that, I will just put an empty space in the alt text field. But make sure that you have to put something there. All images have to have alt text. If it doesn't have alt text, remember, screen readers will try and read like the file name or something. It's kind of messy. So informative images, those are images that graphically will represent concepts and information. We have functional images, an image that's used as a link or a button or some kind of a control, maybe a previous next button or slideshow controls maybe. Images of text, so any image where the text is actually part of the image. And then we have our decorative images. So we'll mention two other types, complex and animated images, but those are kind of unique, kind of different, and really kind of beyond the scope of this talk. So informative images, again, it's pretty obvious that without that image, something's going to be lost, that it conveys information that the user has to have in order to understand the content. So for instance, in our first example, instead of the word phone in front of that phone number, we have the image, a little icon of a phone. That's absolutely essential because otherwise we don't know, is that the fax number? Is that, the phone number, a cell phone number? What is it? So those little icons are absolutely essential in this case. They convey information that what kind of number is this? Images that are used to supplement other information. So say let me think. Say I'm selling the little silver bells that dog is wearing. My image gives an example of what that little small silver bell looks like. And the third image is of a bottle cap. And on top of the bottle cap, it shows you which direction to turn the bottle cap. And there's one arrow pointing down and another arrow pointing counterclockwise. So my alt text for that would be push the cap down and turn it counterclockwise from right to left, because that's what the image is trying to convey. That's the information it's trying to get across. And in the last image, and this, we could argue about this because really writing alt text it is a skill. And there's a little artistry to it. So if this was on a business website, say, that image might be trying to convey the fact that the business is family friendly. Again, context is important in all of these too. If that was, I don't know if it was, on a, I can only think of really terrible things like a family who's perished in a fire or something. That's going to be a really different alt text than showing that it's your business is family friendly. So context is really everything. That's such a bad example. Sorry about that, guys. So functional images are pretty much what they sound like. They're images that actually serve a function. Again, these are really important because without that image, the user doesn't know what to do. They don't maybe, it's not so much that they're lending further supplementary information or describing things, they're actually serving a function. So I would say a logo, at the top of all of our ASU pages in the top upper left corner is our logo. But the function of that, if it's linked, is that it's a link to the ASU homepage. So that's what I would make the alt text, ASU home, because that's what it's for. That's the function that it has a link. And where does the link go? Again, linked icons. If I click on that little printer, what happens? Well, that's how I print this page. So that would be my alt text. It would be the function of that image. The same thing with the little, the previous or the next arrow. If that's arrow is taking me to the next page, then just write next. If it's saying skip this or something, you just write what the function of that arrow is. And some of you may have seen that last little icon before, and it usually means like a PDF that opens in a new page or something that opens in a new page. And you don't describe, I'm not going to say it's a blue square with an arrow popping out of the upper right corner. That doesn't really, that's not necessary. All we need to know is what function that serves. And it's telling us that whatever this image or this link is, it's going to open in a new page. And for image buttons, same thing. Just the function of them. So this button, the first one says learn guitar, has a little icon of a guitar. I would make the alt text learn guitar, because that's what the button itself is called. Same as the submit button, or a review button, or a go back button. Any kind of button, I would just, what's on the button is what my alt text would be. That little magnification icon that we often see next to search input fields, you wouldn't describe the magnifying glass. You're going to describe the function. What does it means search. Graphic text images are images that contain text inside the image. And these are probably one of the easiest ones. Whatever the graphic text is, that's your alt text. So if it's a unlinked logo, like the Arizona State University logo, that's your alt text, Arizona State University. And we have a couple other images. One, I guess it says Hayden 50, celebrating our past, building our future, has a big building behind it and stuff. But I'm not going to describe the building. I'm going to just give you what the text says. Another one that's very common, I don't know if we put it on our websites anymore, but it used to be on almost every page. The best colleges, the US News and World Reports, and we always get the most innovative. This is from 2017. So yeah, you put the text. I don't need to describe what it looks like. What it looks like isn't what's important. What's important is the text. Decorative images. So if an image is just visually decorative, in other words, it doesn't really convey any other information, but it's for a visual purpose only. You'll either, if you're a developer, you know what I mean by saying provide a null alt attribute tag, or mark it if you're using a WYSIWYG, mark it as decorative, or put a space in the alt text field when you come across decorative images, because there's no reason that someone on a screen reader needs to know about things that are just purely visual and give no information and serve no purpose. There's no function behind them. So examples would be like the flourish horizontal bar, an actual horizontal bar, something like the check mark. That was just it's sort of what we might call eye candy. It's meant to visually draw your eye to, don't forget to watch our calendar of events to that text. But if a screen reader isn't concerned with visual, with anything that's going to visually affect you. And in the next example, same thing. That little E going into the envelope, that's to visually draw your eye to the line, get the best of ESPN sent to your inbox, which isn't necessary if we don't have a visual display. So I would leave those empty or null. Also, and this, again, writing alt text there's a skill to it. And some people would say that they would like to see eye candy or generic images, that they set a tone for the page. I think you can argue both ways on that. And I think there are people, screen reader users, who say, no, I want to hear about some of that. And then you have other ones, probably 50% then will say, no, I don't have time for that. If it's not really affecting my use of the page, I don't want to hear about it. It's just taking up my time.
Kathy, why wouldn't, so the ESPN, isn't that a graphic with verbiage? Why wouldn't the verbiage go in the alt text so they could get ESPN sent to their inbox?
That's a really good question. This was supposed to be, it's just this part, just the envelope that is the image. Get the best of ESPN sent to your inbox was the text on the page.
Okay, so it's not one big graphic element. It's not a graphic element with text in it. Okay, I see.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you for pointing that out. This stuff, whoops, go back again. Any of this text here and the call us at and all of that is text on the page. And we're just talking about just the image part of it. But does that make sense though, that it's just there to visually draw your eye to that text?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I said that we can't really talk about these too much because it's kind of, we'd be here for a little bit too long. But complex images, I wanted to put a slide in here about what they are. They're things like charts, graphs, infographics, and they require special treatment in the sense that we have to describe them in text as well, but it gets a little bit more complicated. We do have a page about that. You go to accessibility.asu.edu/complex images, and it'll tell you how you write alt text for those and also how you insert it. But very, very briefly then, the alt text, the actual alt text for one of these, if you uploaded it, would be a very short summary of the image, and you would give a location for where you give a word for word text version of it. So you will, a good example, I'll post it in when I get done here, somebody to remind me. I have a good example of this Microsoft infographic. It's on one of the pages on the accessibility site. And if you click on it, you'll go to, we actually made it a table because in essence, that's a table. And so it shows you how you can recreate the data or the whatever that's on your complex image. It's a little tougher, but the alt text itself will just be a summary and a location. So below the image, or if it's on another page, you can put the URL so people know where to go and get the full text by text or word by word text description. Animated images as well. That's a little bit, they're treated a little bit differently. But the alt text, I mean, there's other requirements of an animated image. It gets kind of complex, but really for the alt text, that's pretty much if it's a functional image, explain, and alt text would be explain what function it serves. If it's a information image, tell us what information it conveys. If it's a decorative image, you leave it blank. So I think I'm missing one. Functional information, and what's the other one, guys? I don't want to have to go back. Functional. Anyway. So if you're still not sure, and there are lots of images that I'll look at and say, I don't know, is this really important or isn't it? Think about something like our business is family friendly. Is that really important, or is it sort of setting the mood? There's a lot of images you can have questions about. We came up with a representation of this, the W3Cs alt decision tree, and it's a really helpful tool. So it's an image in that Dropbox folder that I gave you the link to. You'll find the image, and because, okay, it's a complex image, you have to supply this URL right here, the W3Cs. You'll supply this URL if you send that alt decision tree out to anybody. Make sure you give them this link, because that link is to the text version of the decision tree. And that will serve as your alt text. Does that make sense? Okay.
Kathy,
Yeah.
I dropped in the 4 types of images into the chat because I
Oh, thank you.
noticed that you were wondering what they were, and I figured I'd throw them in there.
Yeah, I'm having a brain cramp here.
That's okay. It's okay. Also, I sent you a separate message about the PowerPoint version. I don't know if you can see that, but we can deal with it later. I figured I'd just let you know.
Oh, there's something wrong with it?
No, the layers of the PowerPoint were out of order. They were backwards, so I fixed it and I sent it back to you.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Did you re-upload it?
I can't because I don't have editing capability for that folder.
Wow. Because, okay, well, we can talk about that later. Yeah. I saw that it was backwards and I made it the other way.
No, it has to be the screen reader needs it to be backwards.
Okay. All right. You can explain that to me in a minute. Yeah.
Yes. Later.
Really? Okay, that's cool. I want to learn more about that. So writing good alt text. And again, it's a skill. So, people can be great writers and get alt text wrong. But so these are the tips I find most useful. Give an accurate, equivalent description of the content and or the function of the image. And it's not here, but I would say within the context. Because the context is really going to influence what you write. To decide, okay, so because images they can be really, really complex. Ask yourself, what is this image primarily trying to convey? Because you don't want to write a treatise on image. You just want to mention what the primary reason for having this image on the page is. A really good suggestion is put the most important information at the beginning. People always, pay attention more to the beginning than they start to drift off towards the end. Keep it short. So you don't want to force the listener or the user to listen to unnecessary text. You don't have to include words like image or icon of or a logo of, because screen readers, they announce every element before they name it. So it would be, I think it's JAWS that says image, and then it reads the alt text. I think it's VoiceOver that says graphic, and then it reads the alt text. So that word is already going to precede your description. Consider context. Okay, there we go. Ask yourself what's important about the image in relation to the rest of the content that's on the page. If it's nothing, maybe it's just decorative. If the description is already available in a caption or the content, then again, don't repeat it in the alt text. Instead, mark the image as decorative. When you mark an image as decorative, you have the alt tag, but it's blank. That's a signal to screen readers should just skip over that image and they just pretend it's not even there. Does anybody have any questions on writing good alt text or suggestions? Have you come across anything that really helps you?
I have a question.
Sure.
And this might be a good question to ask everybody in the room, or how you could answer it. One of the things that I struggle with as an instructional designer is writing alt text for images that are in tests. So, for example, if there's an image that's in an assessment, an exam, where the learner has to assess what is on the page in front of them, and they they need to be able to describe what they're seeing, but they can't see. How do you describe what you're seeing if you can't see, right? So you need alt text that explains what the image is without giving away the answer. So how do you manage that? Or is there anything that you do, or is there any recommendation that you might have? I have ideas in my own mind, but that I don't want to know about my ideas. I want to know about your ideas. So it's just something I think about.
Does anybody have any suggestions? I mean, I think that's a really good question. I think for me, I would ask, what is the question trying to elicit? What sort of, I mean, are you trying to find out that the student has grasped concept A, B, or C? And maybe I do think that's
Kathy,
multimodality.
can I add too? Because I really love that Alejandra, this is Kristen, by the way, that Alejandra brought this up. I'm with Silk, which is the School of International Languages and Culture. And so we're dealing with second language learning. And you have no idea how much I love that Alejandra brought this up, because many of our online courses and quizzes will put a picture of, say, a family, and then they will say, what is the Spanish word for the person in the center, or what color shirt is the person wearing? We use a lot of images in order to have our quizzes and tests, because the students are supposed to look at it and then identify the word. And so I've really been trying to work with our instructors as to how do we brainstorm, do we put these things in the words in English, and then they're just going to translate into Spanish, like in the alt text, but then in a way they're wanting to not give away the English. And so there's that concern of, if we write it just in English in the alt text, is that somehow giving some kind of, I don't know if you could think of it as an advantage, but does that change the assessment? And so this is a question we've been having too, that I have not yet fully found an answer to. So Alejandra, I would love to hear your ideas as part of this too.
Sure. Well, as a Spanish speaker, I speak both English and Spanish. I would say put it in English, because what you're doing, you're not giving the answer away. And the way that a learner or a student would, quote, see the image with the screen reader is by the description. And so if you're not giving them the description, they're not getting an equivalent experience. And by that, they're violating ADA in that, like, so it's really the rabbit hole that I would end up thinking my brain would go down, but that's not what we can say to the instructor, because it doesn't resonate necessarily. So, so then that's the second layer of it. How do you explain this so that there's a level of change? Well, you might consider that, well, what if somebody could not see the colors red and green? How would they distinguish if everybody's wearing red and green shirts? How would they distinguish that? Or they can't see color at all. How would they distinguish that? So like putting the idea of not being able to see at all, what if they simply can't see the colors? Or what if it's blurry and two people end up looking like four people, you know, or the people blur together. How do you, like, is there an arrow pointing there? You know, do you have the people numbered? It goes back to, you know, if you were to describe this image to somebody in person, what would you say to them? You know, you're not, and you're really not giving it away. You're telling them that this is green, and they have to actually know that green is verde. They have to know that rojo is red. They have to know these colors anyway. So I don't know. You
I
could
think
also, I don't know, those are the ways I would go about doing it. Thank you.
in accessibility, they also talk about everything has to have a text label. Everything has to have a name. We have to be able to name things. And to do that, we have to give it a text description or a label or whatever you want to call it. Different elements have different things, but if it's a button, it has a button text. You know, but everything has to have a text equivalent, so that we can talk about it. So yeah, I agree, you know, I mean, unless you're trying to test them that they know if you're also trying to test whether they know the English word for whatever you're asking them, you know, for father or whatever. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, then you would put the word padre in the alt text.
Well, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the alt text would be multilingual. And so then the screen reader would have to be able to read both languages. That's also an issue. Separate from what we're talking about here, but anyway.
Yeah. It's really, and then I know that there's some discussion too about I had a really great discussion with someone at ASU about uh, an image if you're trying to convey that you're inclusive. And she was talking about there was an image of a young Black man and a young white woman sitting in front of a desk or behind, in front of a desk, and behind the desk was a woman who looked like a little bit older and, you know, might have been like some kind of advisor or maybe a professor or something. And the image was trying to convey that we're more inclusive at ASU. So, you know, when you start talking about race or gender or, you know, like more sensitive things, you know, how much do you describe? You know, it can be tricky. Is there anybody here from sales who does this all the time? No. I just I think sometimes I think the best thing to do is think about, okay, I'm a student who say you're trying to write alt text for screen readers who can't see. What do I need to what information do I need to move forward? Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples here. What alt text would you add for this image? And the text, by the way, is part of the text on the page, and there's the image of the seatbelt, two hands, and I guess it's the buckle and the tongue with an arrow in between them showing you which way the tongue goes. Okay. I would say that just saying a seatbelt would be inequivalent because really the seatbelt is telling you how to perform an action. So you have to describe the action that you would insert the seatbelt tongue into the buckle. That's what it's really trying to tell you about. Alt text for this image. Anybody want to take a stab at it? Okay. So I think just saying fans, again, this depends on context too, but I think fans is kind of inadequate. You know, there's such a dynamic picture with so much energy behind it. I think I would want to explain football fields, football stands filled with ASU students yelling and giving them Farkum Devils hand sign. I think conveying kind of the energy behind the picture, depending on context again. This one is, I don't know, anybody want to try this one? All right, this is what I would say. A student, I think, would be inadequate. I think explaining that it's, again, depending on context, it's an undergraduate student performing an experiment in the chemistry lab. It gives some specifics. It sets, kind of sets the context of what's going on. And this I thought was really good from Moz.com. They gave us some examples of what they think of as good, better, and best alt text. And there's an image of pancakes. They thought, okay, pancakes is good. Better is blueberry pancakes, but best is stack of blueberry pancakes with powdered sugar. This image is of a man going an escalator, kind of a steep escalator, going pretty deep. And man on an escalator, that's pretty good. Man walking on an escalator is better because the man, you're describing the action in the image, but man wearing a backpack walking down the escalator, the backpack is pretty predominant in this image. So that, I think, is why they brought that point up. This one, I don't know. Rooster, they're saying, is good. Rooster crowing, which is the action going on, is better. But describing the rooster, that's a red crested rooster, and what the rooster's doing, he's crowing, is the best. So you can kind of see, I think, how you can build your alt text to kind of really give a good description of what we're seeing. So if you still want more on accessible images, you can visit accessibility.asu.edu. You can email accessibility@asu.edu, or you can ask questions on ASU's accessibility Slack channel. And that is the slideshow. Again, let me stop sharing and give this one more time in case anybody came in late. Here is, here's the links to you can either take the Google Slides and copy them, or you can go to the Dropbox folder and download a file of the PowerPoint slides, the alt text month image, and alt text decision tree poster. So I think can we go back to the other slideshow, Alejandra, and talk about how we can make, everybody can try to make February alt text month.
All right, here we are. Let's make February alt text month. So what you can do is you can grab the slide deck that we just presented and print out and post the alt decision tree poster, or share it out on Slack. That's always a good idea. You can also, just share it by email, however you'd like. You could also consider leading a team exercise. So perhaps training for one of your team meetings to talk about how to write alt text for the 4 different kinds of images. You could even set up a team challenge. So ask your colleagues to take a screenshot and then see who can make the best alt text for it. Or, talk about how to make an image in a test accessible, which we just did that, but put that in your, put that in your conversations for your team and see if that might, generate some new ideas. I think this is really important because the number of times a learner or a student runs into an image that doesn't have a description, or the description is minimal, is very, very minimal, it's like running into a wall, or, you know, a broken link. Nobody likes broken links. Nobody likes, and clearly nobody likes running into walls. So I think it would be beneficial for all of us to help spread the word that, you know, we have this opportunity to make a really significant change in our learner experiences or student experiences on the web, in Canvas, or wherever you're hosting your courses, and your learning experiences. It would be really helpful to make this change in your design. Let's see here. Other things that were going on in the chat. Okay. All right. So you've got some great ideas. Yes, please definitely bring this to your team. Okay. So this month, we've both, Kathy and I, we've been talking about the communications for this group, and we thought that this Ally Liaison Slack channel and the accessibility channel basically are repeats of each other. We're wondering if you would be okay with us merging them and just getting rid of an extra channel for us to check, or would that be too confusing? If anybody has a disagreement, please post it in the chat or pop up.
Yeah, if you can think of a reason why that might make things difficult, go ahead and let us know. Otherwise, we'll probably go ahead and do it. Cool. Gives you just sometimes I think I have so many channels I can't even keep track of them sometimes. So that'll make things easier, I think.
A question about that. When you merge them, this is more of just a general Slack question. When you merge them, which conversation will it keep?
Oh, that's a good question.
Maybe
Because
we
I
need,
wonder how to keep the history of the conversations.
well,
I'll
we would
find out if I can
archive one. We would archive one, and then we'd still have it. So you could still access it, and then we could have a permanent link to it.
Okay, yeah, that might be helpful, just because I know there's been so many things discussed and different learnings on both.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's think about that. If we could potentially lose data or information, then maybe
Okay.
we don't merge them.
Okay. If nothing else, we could just kind of direct people to one of them or the other. Probably the accessibility one, because I think there's like over 500 people on the accessibility one and maybe closer to 100 on the other. I think just accessibility, Karen, don't you think? Keep it easy, or do you have another suggestion? Okay.
It's quicker for me to unmute than to type. I don't have any other suggestions for a title. I just thinking if you're not active on one channel and all of a sudden it's gone, you might be confused.
Oh, okay.
So just make sure, you know,
I'll see
there
if
are
we can
multiple announcements about the change.
Okay. All
I
right.
wonder, and then I wonder if there's a Slack expert out there. If you are that Slack expert that knows everything all about Slack, please reach out to me and Kathy so that we can talk about it. Because if you know all about Slack, we can get this done. And then, yeah. Okay. Good. Yes.
Cool.
Okay, great.
So,
All right. And then guess what? We have our giveaway. And our giveaway is an exciting accessibility course. So I'm going to click to spin this.
yes.
Santiago,
Yes,
¿estás acá?
he's here.
Santiago. You won.
Santiago.
Yeah. We have our winner. We did it by 3. And if you want, you can stay after to have more conversation about this. We have a half an hour blocked.